The Electoral Court will hear the Democratic Alliance's legal challenge of President Cyril Ramaphosa's Sunday address to the nation that took place on the 26th of April 2024. Now, the then official opposition party, in papers before the court, accused Ramaphosa of abusing the highest office in the land for flagrant electioneering. The DA contended that the conduct of Ramaphosa, who was also the ANC's presidential candidate for the May polls, violated multiple provisions of the Electoral Act. In a notice of motion dated the 27th of May 2024, the DA is asking the Electoral Court to declare that the president's address violated sections of the Electoral Act and the Constitution. The DA also wants the Specialist Court to direct Ramaphosa to pay a fine of 200,000 rand and that the votes cast for the ANC in the 2024 elections be reduced by 1%. So for more on today's Electoral Court sitting, we cross live to SABC News reporter Canny Maphanga. Canny, good morning. So a lot of water has since passed under the bridge. We now have a government of national unity, but of course, these papers were filed well before that happened. So talk to us about what the court will be readying and busying itself with today.
Well, good morning to you, Sakina, and to the viewers at home. Indeed, when those papers were filed earlier this year, this was prior to, or at least 2 days prior to the 2024 national and provincial elections. You may remember that the president, in his capacity as head of state, did conduct that address to the nation, assuring the nation of free and fair elections, safe elections, and of course, the DA at the time, which was the official opposition, took issue with that address taking place about 48 hours before the nation would vote in those all-important critical 2024 national and provincial elections. They filed that application in the Electoral Court, stating that he had violated multiple provisions of the Electoral Act, the Electoral Code, and of course the Constitution, arguing or alleging rather that that speech was a means to unduly influence or gain some votes for the African National Congress, which he was the presidential candidate for in the 2024 national and provincial elections. So that was filed in the Electoral Court prior to the events that we saw in the changing political landscape in South Africa. It seems, however, that today there is no notice of withdrawal that was expected in this matter once the politics of the day rather changed and we saw a government of national unity, which the DA is participating in on quite a grand scale. However, we see them still forging ahead with this application in the Electoral Court, asking for that relief of the 200,000 rand fine, then of course asking for the national election results to be decreased by 1% if they are successful in this application. Now, we know this morning that the presidency will be opposing, and we also understand that the ANC has now filed their own affidavit as well to oppose this application by the DA. However, we don't know if we can get to the court this morning and we can see that the parties have possibly come to some sort of settlement, as we saw in the DA Putin versus the president case that we saw when they went to the North Gauteng High Court and brought that settlement or draft order before the court, and it was settled without any hearing needed to take place. So we'll see at 9:45 a.m. when the parties arrive in court if they do indeed intend to fully challenge this address, which they say is to hold the president accountable for the alleged abuse of state resources.
Well, Canny, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as we wait to see whether there will be a settlement, drawn up agreement, as you said, or whether this will go ahead. Canny Maphanga, our reporter, watching that story for us.